Hey guys, welcome back to Intelligent Faith 315. This is Pastor Jay. So good to have you with us today. We're continuing on with Lesson 3, Truth, Is It Knowable? Does truth exist? And if truth actually does exist, can it be known? And what theory of truth is the logically strongest and most robust way of looking at reality? So welcome back. This is part 3 of Lesson 3, Truth, Is It Knowable? I do encourage you to go to iTunes and check out our podcast, Reason to Believe. It's in the singular. And download those episodes and the resources of our podcast on iTunes, Reason to Believe. I encourage you to go to YouTube, if you're not there already, and check out our Intelligent Faith 315 YouTube channel. Or jump over to our mother website, intelligentfaith315.com. We've got articles, resources, videos. This is one aspect of our apologetic ministry. And Intelligent Faith 315 and this apologetic video class, Reason to Believe, we exist for one simple purpose: to reach Christians in the sense of training them and helping you to understand and to have a better efficiency and ability to explain and defend the Christian worldview more intelligently, more articulately, and to be able to become acquainted with the great evidence and the powerful proof that exists for the Christian worldview truth claims. So if you're a Christian, we're glad you're here because we want to train you, help you, and give you some good tools, good things to think about that can help you as you share your faith, share the Christian worldview, and engage in conversation with those around you. If you're an atheist or a humanist or a relativist, if you're a skeptic, we're glad you're here because we want to share with you directly the evidence and proof that exists to support the Christian worldview truth claims. The idea is that God exists, that truth exists and is knowable, and that God has actually revealed himself to mankind in history through the man Jesus of Nazareth, and has actually proven this to the world through many, many ways, one of which is by physically, literally raising him from the dead. We want to help you understand that. Now, those are some bold claims. Those are some large truth claims there, and we want to demonstrate that to you. We want to assume the burden of proof to a degree and just show you that it is more plausible than not to accept the Christian worldview as true. It definitely, in an evidential, logical sense, it's superior to the other 6 worldviews, and we just want to help you guys become acquainted with the truth claims that the Christian worldview has and the evidence logically, rationally, scientifically, historically that support those truth claims. So we're glad that you're here. Well, let's jump into this. We left off last time in our lesson. We started talking about the different ways that people look at truth. So let me just jump forward to that. We talked about what truth was. Can truth be known? We defined it. And then we talked about what the definition of falsity was as well. And this was the correspondence theory of truth. And we left off here. We had already gone through relativism and agnosticism, and we had gotten into skepticism of doubting all truth. Again, there are multiple theories of truth. There's the coherence theory, there's the pragmatic theory, there's the sincerist theory. There's all kinds of theories of truth, but it does seem that the only one that stands up to logical investigation is the correspondence theory of truth. And again, the correspondence theory of truth would say that truth is that which corresponds to its object, it matches reality, it tells it like it is. This is the theory of truth that not only is logical and stands up to testing, but it's also the theory of truth that we use in our common everyday experience. So we then began, as I said, to look at these different ways that people view truth. Relativism, which denies absolute truth. Agnosticism, which denies all truth. Skepticism, which doubts all truth. And today we'll get into postmodernism, which affirms no truth. And then pluralism, which affirms opposite truth claims. We talked about relativism. Agnosticism. Immanuel Kant was kind of the poster child for this. He says that we can't know the truth about reality. We can only know the appearance of things. We can't know the thing in and of itself, only the thing as it appears to us, and that we must remain agnostic about reality. And if you analyze agnosticism, what did we find? Well, we found out that agnosticism fails because it is actually self-defeating. By claiming to know the truth about reality, that we cannot know any truth about reality. And so agnosticism in that strict sense is self-defeating. Again, we said if a person is a soft agnostic and says, well, I don't know, you can know, but I personally don't know yet, that's fine. But a hard position of agnosticism is logically self-defeating. Okay? It's self-contradictory. It's what we call self-stultifying. Now, many people hold to ideas that are self-defeating for long periods of time because they don't stop and analyze them, or perhaps they just don't want to be honest with themselves that they are a logically self-defeating idea. We mentioned verificationism, or what used to be called logical positivism. This was a very popular materialistic, naturalistic way of looking at the world in the mid-20th century, in the 1950s, and verificationism and logical positivism was self-defeating and has been rejected and abandoned at the university. And I do encourage you to investigate that. Just go to Google and type in verificationism, type in logical positivism, and you will find out that it was a self-defeating idea, it was self-contradictory, but it was believed in and taught at the university for decades. So it is possible to hold on to these beliefs, even though they're contradictory, for a long period of time. And you may find that you yourself, maybe unknowingly, are holding a self-contradictory idea, like hardcore agnosticism. It fails because it cannot satisfy its own criteria. Okay? It claims to know the truth about reality, that you cannot know any truth about reality. So agnosticism failed. Skepticism, doubting all truth, we talked about David Hume. He said that we should doubt everything about reality. We can only know sense data, and we should suspend judgment on all truth claims about reality. And how does this hardcore skepticism of David Hume, how does it fare upon investigation? Well, it fails, because it is either self-defeating by claiming that we should doubt everything, including skepticism, or it's logically inferior because it begs the question by claiming that skepticism is the only view that shouldn't be doubted. So again, these would be two logical ways in which skepticism would fail or flounder, because it's self-defeating, it cannot meet its own criteria, okay, or it begs the question. If skepticism were true, it would be false. Because if you're supposed to be skeptical about everything, then I should be skeptical about skepticism, and then skepticism wouldn't be true. So if it's true, it's false, and if it's false, it's false. But then if it begs the question, well, that's just a logical fallacy, and it's seeking to exclude itself from investigation, and that doesn't work either. So it would appear that hardcore skepticism fails as well as hardcore agnosticism. Again, we mentioned last time that skepticism is good as a method. If you're skeptical about truth claims, skeptical about what someone is telling you, and you want to investigate it, that's excellent. That's what we want to encourage you to do. Don't believe us. Don't believe the Christian truth claims. Don't believe anyone that wanders up and knocks on your door. You should be a methodological skeptic. In other words, a person who uses skepticism as a method of investigation. But don't be a hardcore skeptic in the sense of saying that all truth claims should be doubted, because that's a logically self-defeating position. So we move on to our next one, and this is postmodernism. One of the poster children for this would be Jacques Derrida. He says that we must deconstruct all truth claims, we must reconstruct as many views as possible, and then he also says no reconstruction is objectively true, it is merely new. And so postmodernism is very, very common today in the university. This is one of the predominant ways of looking at reality today, and so it's good to understand what are the claims of postmodernism. Again, he says you have to deconstruct all truth claims, find out where they've come from and what that society and group is and how they've constructed those. We can reconstruct as many views as possible, doesn't really matter, and no reconstruction is objectively true, it's just subjectively true. So each group can subjectively reconstruct and define their own truth claim. Another way that you can look at this is that in postmodernism it is taught that there is no what they call meta-narrative. There is no ultimate truth story, what they call a meta-narrative. A narrative, a story that is above all other stories, looking down in truth over all other narratives. There's no meta-narrative Postmodernism would just say there's many, many narratives. So another way to say that would be there's no one ultimate true worldview. There's no one ultimate true philosophy or religion. There's just many philosophies, many religions, many stories. And so in postmodernism, something that's very common is myth. Myth and legend, fantasy, that's just as good as any other description of reality. And so this is an interesting way of looking at truth. It makes no truth claims. Okay, they're all equally valid, all equally just. Everything can be deconstructed and reconstructed. That's what Mr. Derrida would say. How does it fare under investigation? Well, postmodernism also fails because either it claims to be true and is thereby self-defeating because it says that there is no truth claim, but it claims to be true, so that's logically self-defeating, or else it makes no truth claim and is not even in the ballgame of truth. So if it's not even making a claim to truth, well then why would we even pay attention to it? Let's just disregard it. But if it is making a claim to truth, well then it's self-defeating because postmodernism says that there are no truth claims. There's just claims, but there's no real truth claims. There's no objective truth claims. So that would be a self-defeating statement. So ignoring the truth doesn't extinguish it. And it does appear that postmodernism kind of fails at that. Ignoring the truth doesn't extinguish it. Surely all religions, all worldviews, all philosophies couldn't be true at the same time if they make opposite truth claims. But nonetheless, it doesn't negate the necessity of investigating these things to see if truth does exist. Because again, of course, Mr. Derrida is claiming that postmodernism is truth, all the while saying that truth doesn't exist. So it is self-defeating. He is saying that there are no objective truth claims. They're just subjective, but yet he's making the objective truth claim that postmodernism is true. So this is very simple. This doesn't have to be very complicated. It is self-defeating. It is self-contradictory. Postmodernism in this way is self-stultifying. However, postmodernism today is very common and popular philosophically, just like verificationism and logical positivism was in the middle of the 20th century, in the 1950s. So don't let it surprise you that it has happened many times in history that a viewpoint has been taken that is logically self-defeating only to be realized later. So logical, or postmodernism rather, is self-defeating, or it doesn't make any truth claim, and then it can just be disregarded anyway. So that's a response to postmodernism. Now relativism, that all truth is relative or subjective. And this is very common. Alfred North Whitehead, he's credited with being one of the intellectual grandfathers of this way of looking at truth. He would say reality has no unchanging forms. All truth is in process and is never final. And he would also say that all truth is relative and changing. So this idea of relativism is held by many, many people today. And this is usually spoken of like this. Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. I do believe that truth exists. I do believe that I can know truth and you can know truth. But the relativist would mostly claim to say that, well, your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth. It's subjectively true for me, it's legitimate, and your truth is subjectively true for you. There's no objective, overarching, absolute truth. There's just individual, private, subjective truth. That's what people would say. Absolute truth, which would oppose relativism, for example, would say that there are absolute truths, there are objective truths, there are universal truths that are true for all people at all times and at all places. Well, relativism would deny that. Again, Mr. Whitehead and other relativists like him would say reality has no unchanging forms, all truth is in process and is never final, and that all truth is relative and changing. It is person relative, it is subjective, it is private, it's individual interpretation. That's relativism. And then a response, well, relativism fails to deny absolutism because it either affirms that relativism is absolutely true, which makes it self-defeating, or else it claims that it is just another relative statement and hence is unsuccessful. And so again, I know it sounds maybe too quick for you or too simplistic, but if a statement is logically self-defeating, if it is a self-contradicting statement, if, as some people say, if it cuts its own throat or takes itself out of the game, then it needs to be disregarded. And so again, relativism is basically standing on a soapbox and saying, I have an absolute truth to share with you. There is no absolute truth. And so if relativism is true, it is false, because it is saying there are no absolute truth claims. So why would I listen to the truth claim of relativism? Okay? So it's self-defeating because it's making an absolute truth claim while denying that absolute truth exists, or it claims it's just another relative statement, and there you can just disregard it. And so relativism in that sense is very, very problematic. It's self-defeating, it's self-contradictory. That's all the time we have for today. Don't want to go too long. I encourage you to come back for the next and final part of this lesson as we continue to investigate, does truth exist? Does absolute objective truth exist? And can we know it? Until then, have an intelligent faith.